It literally feels like you've grown a ball sack down there. Sorry. This is, I said, you brought an Aussie.
So puffy.
You brought an Aussie onto the podcast. There's got to be some bogan slang here.
Welcome to Parents You've Got This, We've Got You, the new podcast for brand new parents from Tommee Tippee. I'm Jilly Isabella, a new mum in the thick of it, just like you. Each week, I'm joined by a guest star and a parenting professional, and we're going to share the real stories, expert advice to help you navigate pregnancy, the newborn days, and early parenthood. Let's share the highs, the lows, and everything in between. No fluff, zero judgment, just real talk. You've got this and we've got you. Becoming a parent can feel like you've given every bit of yourself away. So in this episode, we're answering, who am I now? We'll discuss ways to ease the overwhelm and feel strong again through self-care, movement, and choices that put yourself first. Today, I'm joined by Liv Golding, fitness entrepreneur, presenter, and mum of two. How old are your girls now, Liv?
2 and 4.
Fun. So we had 2 under 2 at one point?
No, they're 2.5 years apart,
Okay.
but they're very different personalities, I can say that.
So it brought a whole host of challenges, which I'm
Totally.
sure we'll get into. And joined by Midwife Monique, all the way from Australia. She's here to help us on recovery and making sure mum is looking after mum. How long have you been a midwife for, Monique?
Yeah, so I've been a midwife now. This is my 7th year and studied for 4 years before that. So I'm getting old. Been in the space for a decade.
No, you're getting experienced. And we're going to delve into all that experience throughout this chat today. I love to start off each episode going all the way back to the beginning and how you became a mum. So what were your 2 births like with your girls?
They were very different. I would say the first, I wanted it to be as natural as possible. So I brought a doula into the hospital. My girls were born in the US. I soon found out that having a doula in the hospital was kind of a clash of both holistic methods and hospital medical methods. And so it was a little bit of a convoluted birth, I would say, but it all went down smoothly. I definitely found after giving birth that the breastfeeding was extremely difficult. But then with my second, I was hoping for the best. I've experienced now, and same midwife, same doula, same doctor, same all of that, and was taken off guard. I had to stay in the hospital for some reason. I still to this day do not know how, and maybe you can explain. I somehow got a blood infection, and my daughter had to spend her first 10 days in the NICU. She had swallowed meconium, she had pneumonia and had to have antibiotics. And so her first newborn clothing, she never got to wear them. That was really sad. When she finally got out of the hospital, she was like 2 weeks old.
Yeah, that must have been so rough going through NICU.
Yeah,
but
thank you.
To the hospital staff were there. Talking of meconium pneumonia, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Liv, that's any time that a parent has a baby go to the nursery, no parents ever expect that to happen. And it's so overwhelming for parents, especially if you've never heard of things like meconium aspiration syndrome, which it sounds like that's what your daughter had. But basically, to understand meconium pneumonia it's basically meconium. If you guys don't know, you're very much going to be across it. But for those people that are listening that don't know, it's the first kind of poo that your baby does after birth. It's thick, black, sticky, and tarry. And I'm an Aussie, so I'm going to say it pretty much resembles Vegemite. That's the best way to explain it. But basically, sometimes, ideally, we don't want babies to pass the meconium when they're still inside, your tummy. But sometimes if they're in distress, or even sometimes babies that are post their due date, they can have more of a mature gut that they can pass that meconium. It causes the fluid to turn more of a green color. So that's meconium stained liquor, meconium stained amniotic fluid. And basically it then potentially leads to your baby aspirating it. So getting it into their lungs. You can imagine meconium is thick, meaning it can obstruct their airways, but also it makes it quite challenging for them to oxygenate themselves. So I don't know, with your daughter, did you see that her work of breathing increased? She had a little bit more respiratory distress. The way that we treat it is the baby would go to the nursery, so the NICU, and often has oxygen supplementation to help, promote that oxygenation, as well as antibiotics, because the meconium can cause inflammation in the baby's lungs, which is why we then need the antibiotics. So that's a little bit about meconium aspiration syndrome.
I just want to clarify. So I had my baby in the UK. So I went through the NHS healthcare system. You had your babies in America, in the States.
In Los Angeles, yes.
So that'll be different. And then you've got your experience from Australia. So we're really hitting all the continents here. Having had 2 children, second time around, did you find that reality met expectation?
I think I've learned that with motherhood is that you kind of have to just go with it. But I was certainly expecting myself to be a better mom going around the second time. But I think I was also very taken aback by how hard it was. Even the second time, growing and challenges are always difficult. But I think I set myself up and my expectations to be like, okay, it's going to be easier. And when it wasn't, and when things were different, I think that was a real setback.
It's like you birth a baby, but you also kind of like rebirth yourself as well.
Totally.
So I think for second time parents, there might be this like where people think,
Pressure.
oh, it's easier. Like you've did it before, but like you said, you had 2 completely different births. And so the psychological changes would have been so different. Monique, what are some of the psychological changes that a woman can expect after birth?
So I think it really depends so much on a woman's birthing experience for one. I mean, Liv, you would have even seen from first pregnancy, like first birth to second, being separated from your daughter would have been really challenging and sort of shifted the way that your postpartum unfolded. Did you find that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so in the first few days, one of the main things that I, as a midwife, see is women coming to terms with their birthing experience. You know, they might have had some sort of idea of how they wanted their birth to unfold. And when it doesn't hit that mark, straight away, I failed. You know, my body failed. It's so natural. It should be doing this, but I didn't get the birth that I want. And I think that's one of the main psychological things that I see is women being so hard on themselves. You know, I literally had a woman that I supported a couple of weeks ago, and her birth, I knew it didn't go to plan. But did that mean that she did a bad job? No. And I went and visited her and I saw her and I was like, I'm so proud of you. And she was in tears because she couldn't see that. But I was like, you've done such a great job. So I think women processing the birth and, you know, birth trauma, not to, you know, get into a negative, it's real.
Yeah.
It's real life, and trauma to one person may not be trauma to another person. And so I think coming to terms with how the birth unfolded and, you know, adapting to this different version of you. You mentioned, Jilly, that you're reborn, which you are, but there's still the same person there too. So I feel like that's one of the big things that I see straight away after birth, as well as those mums that are separated from their babies. As a midwife, we don't want to separate a mum from a baby, and we know the implications that can have on someone's experience. And, you know, did you have to go home and leave her at the hospital?
Luckily, we're in the same hospital for a couple days. But I think just the healing on my part that had to unfold, and then seeing her trying to fight for life at the same time. And you're just like, why is this happening? Right? It's just not, you don't really prepare for something like that.
Or you hear it happening to someone else, but you would never expect that it happens to you. And I think so also just acknowledging those mums that are separated from their babies, like that is incredibly difficult. And leaving your baby in the hospital with the nurses can also come with a completely different feeling as well. So being kind with that, but then we can tap into the baby blues, which I'm sure you guys experienced. But usually after birth, we know you're like a cocktail of hormones. Did you find that you were on a high after birth? You felt like you were sort of, women say they feel like they're pinging in a way, that their oxytocin levels are going wild, that they watch their baby, they cannot sleep, but they're so exhausted at the same time. This is because your hormones, your endorphins, your oxytocin is on your side. But once your milk starts to transition in, once you start to go home, we see the hormones change. And often with that, what do women experience? Baby blues, which baby blues is completely normal, but does that make it less hard? No. And for the people that are listening that may not know what baby blues is, basically the way that I describe it to women is because of that change in hormones, it's so dramatic that you pretty much can react completely different to every single situation. You might be happy, then you might be sad, but then you feel overwhelmed, but then you're looking at your baby, you're grateful, but then you're processing your birth. That's how I describe it to women. Extending beyond baby blues, we have postnatal depression and postnatal anxiety, which is just a massive topic that does not get spoken about enough.
It's a lot more common than what you think, because I think there's maybe still a little bit of stigma with postnatal depression. One of our other experts that we had on, Dr. Zoe, she mentioned that a mother might be scared to admit postnatal depression, because it might be that that's you admitting that I'm not capable of being a mum. That's not the case whatsoever. Monique, you mentioned there you have this massive drop in hormone. It's the biggest drop in hormones that any human ever experiences. So of course that's going to bring a whole array of issues. And so the important thing here, I think, to take away from that is, if you do feel low, to just reach out, talk to your friends that have had babies, talk to your parents. If you've not got that support system, speak to your healthcare providers. There's communities out there that will make you feel seen and make you feel heard.
And definitely it's so much more common than people think. And, you know, the statistics that we know is 1 in 5 new mums, 1 in 10 new dads in the first year will experience postnatal depression or anxiety. I promise you those statistics are so much higher. And I have watched friends and family struggle where they can't see that they're struggling. But, you know, people can. And if there is so much stigma around it. And asking for help, I don't know why, but as females, straight away, if you ask for help, automatically you think I'm failing. When you're not.
Yeah.
You're not at all. And one thing that I just want to touch on is postnatal depression is so much, and anxiety is so much bigger than this conversation right now. And the thing to note is that it varies so much from person to person, from your symptoms to mild, moderate to really severe. One thing that is important to understand, if you're someone that suffered from anxiety or depression or any mental health issues in your life, you're going to be at higher risk. So it's setting plans in place in the pregnancy to protect yourself, but also creating your village then, rather than when you're struggling, because at that point when you're struggling, you can't actually think. And one thing that I like to suggest to women that I teach in all my childbirth education classes is start a diary postpartum, where it's just, you don't physically have to write anything down, but a mental check-in of, how am I feeling today? How much energy do I have?
So you mean more than just, when has my baby pooped? When have I breastfed?
Write
about yourself.
Literally.
Yeah, we're journaling now.
Which breast did I feed on last? But, you know, a mental check-in, because if you start to see that, okay, for 2 weeks now, I've seen that my energy, I've got low energy, or my mood, I'm teary, I'm sad, I feel withdrawn. That's your check-in that, hey, something's not quite right. And seeking help early, as cliche as that sounds, you know, it's okay to ask for help. It's so important. And then you've got your support people who also can be struggling. So it's just such a hard thing to navigate, and we shouldn't have to do it alone.
And we're balancing the whole physical changes that comes with that as well. So the mum guilt starts early. Liv, we are at our no time to think part of the show. It's our quick fire question round. So I'll give you some quick fire questions. Yes, no, one word answer. If you can't think of anything, just say pass.
Okay.
One word to sum up being a mum of 2.
Exhausting.
Choose one morning move: stretch, walk, or sweat.
Stretch.
Your self-care non-negotiable.
Breathing.
Most used baby product.
Diapers.
I feel like I know this answer. Pilates or yoga?
Both are excellent for you, but yoga came first.
Okay. What do you say no to faster now that you're a mum?
Fast food.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fair. What do you say yes to more now?
Everything.
Yeah.
It's always no from them, and it's always yes for me. It feels like that's all I'm doing is saying yes all the time.
Yeah. A new skill that you would like to learn for yourself now that you are getting back to having some more time?
You know, it's great to have hobbies, and I haven't had a new hobby in a while, but my sister brought up shuffle dancing, and all of a sudden now it's all over my social media, so that looks fun.
Super fun. Yeah. Liv, you've been open about miscarriage and your experience. Do you feel comfortable sharing that time in your life and how that impacted motherhood for you when you did become a mum?
Yeah, it's wonderful that she talks a lot about depression and anxiety, because it can happen postpartum, but I think it can also happen at any time. I feel like the whole motherhood journey is so emotional in itself. And yes, there's a lot that we're discovering about ourselves, and it's very much internal with the hormones and everything going on. And then miscarriage just kind of like heaps onto it, just more confusion, more wonder. And it's also very confusing because it all has to do with your body, and I found that I've never really paid as much attention to my body as when I was pregnant. Like all of a sudden you want to get pregnant one day and you're like, okay, so what are we doing? How are my eggs? Like, what are my levels at? Like, what am I doing? And then you find a lot of trouble. And I think a lot of women nowadays too, there's just so much to do with our health that we're not able to kind of focus on until we're at that stage of life. And then when you get there, there's so much that's going on. There's so much to actually work out. And so I think with miscarriage, it can also happen anytime. Like I've heard of other moms, you know, trying for a third and, you know, having miscarriage later. So it's an ongoing kind of life and death cycle. And I'm still kind of, even with the miscarriage, I still feel like it's part of me, even though it happened before my 2 girls. And very much I brought a lot of that kind of grief into, and worry and anxiety going into my birth and all of that. You know, it never quite leaves you. But at the same time, I know so many women go through it. And so opening up and discussing it with other women, I feel has kind of opened up the conversation to receive kind of healing. And it's amazing when you kind of have these difficult discussions, how women come to your rally and how we kind of just bond and come together. And that's why I feel like these kind of discussions are so important, because saying it out loud makes it not a silent trouble. You know, it kind of just makes it something that we all kind of go through.
It makes you feel less alone, and thank you for opening up and sharing that, because I'm sure there will be some listeners that has experienced it. I can definitely resonate. I had miscarriage as well, and it's like you said, that anxiety never leaves you, because when I did fall pregnant with my wee girl Winnie, and the whole pregnancy I was so paranoid. I hardly took any pictures of my bump because I thought, God forbid something happens. And even now speaking about it, I'm like, I don't want to put it out into the universe, as happy as that sounds. I don't want to put that out and like wish that upon myself. But even now that Winnie is here, there's just a whole new host of anxieties. Now I'm like, right, okay, I need to keep this baby alive, and then she's going to grow up, and then she's going to go to school, and I need to make sure that she gets home from school. And so there's almost kind of like there's like finding peace in that anxiety. So if you have experienced miscarriage or loss and then you're trying for another, there's almost like, listen, that anxiety is going to be there. But that also just shows you that you're a good parent. Like, you want the best for that baby. And so I think kind of leaning into that kind of helps you make peace with it.
I feel like, though, as women, we do dismiss it a lot in terms of, I listen to you guys speak and I can hear that you're so grateful for having, you know, your children now, but that doesn't mean that it's not as, like, it wasn't a hard time. Like, that journey is still very much part of your life. That has shaped you into the person that you are. Like, that baby's DNA is instilled into your brain. Like, they are still connected to you. And I think I support so many women through loss. Like, we don't see them as much in the hospital in those early few weeks, but, you know, I support women with full-term babies that have passed. And the thing that I always say to them is, you've envisioned this life with this baby. Like, it doesn't matter from how big they are. Like, you have envisioned having them in your life. So loss at whatever point in time it is, it's hard. And one thing that I find, you know, gives women some peace is, yes, they're grieving that loss, but think of the memories that you have made with that baby. Like, you know, that excitement that you did have, that car ride where you sang songs in the car. Like, if you can relate to those moments and be like, hey, this baby's not in my arms, but they're in my heart. Like, and we have these memories together. I feel like it gives a lot of women comfort. But it's hard. Miscarriage, 1 in 4 women experience it.
I never knew what the statistics were.
1 in 4.
That makes you feel a lot less isolated.
And there's 2 of us in the room, so
there you go. Absolutely, that's incredibly helpful. I think there'll be a lot of listeners that will be able to take some points away from that. Monique, we're going all the way back. Liv, what were your first weeks at home like with Lila? Can you remember?
Oh my gosh.
Don't bring it up.
It's a little bit of fog.
It is such a wonderful capsule in time. I remember, like, you bring this bundle of joy home and everything kind of slows down and it becomes such an intimate time of bonding, but also just learning. That transition to motherhood, it begins, I feel like, the moment you step in the car or leave the hospital. Because at first you're so loved and cared for by all the nurses and everyone's there and you're like, oh, this is going to be great. And then you get home and you're alone. You're like, oh boy, what have I done?
There's no buzzers, no midwives are coming to the room.
It's all on me now.
How do I put the baby in the car seat? That's like the first concern.
Exactly. So I found that the moment I got home, I had everything set up for the baby, but I found that I had nothing set up for myself. And I did have my first Lila when, COVID was happening. So it was very much an isolating time. And, it wasn't something that I had thought of to take care of me. I always thought that, baby comes first. And yes, for anyone listening, as long as the baby's in full health and everything's fine with the baby, very much so, that's how it should be. But once you get home, what I found was that I had put myself on the back burner. I completely had no plan for my own nutrition. I thought, okay, I'm going to take, some time off and that will be enough. I did not know that I would need to take medicines or to heal. I guess this is the space to share TMI, like the aftercare, breast care, all these things. I didn't realize, taking my journal, like how many medicines did I take my medicines on time, which breasts am I breastfeeding with? And it was so inundating, like with just all the information. I feel like, especially in those early days, I really suffered at a loss because I wasn't able to just picture myself or take myself into consideration at all. There was a time when I think the nurse was bringing the baby back and forth, and I was like, so the baby's on a schedule, the baby has food, and I have nothing. Like, who is taking care of me?
Yeah, absolutely.
I had no idea that I would need care. So that was a big thing for me. And initiating breastfeeding was extremely difficult. Like, I thought that it was going to come naturally, and as it should. Like, some mothers find it very easy, and I didn't expect it to be difficult for me. And so that whole process of crying in my soup, thinking I'm a failure, having engorged breasts, and it was just so yucky. It was like, wow, so much going on at the same time. It's like, all I want to do is have a coffee. Like, can't I just have a schedule? Like, why is this little person just completely overridden my life, and I cannot think or do anything for myself anymore? It's just, that completely took me by surprise.
It's such a big culture shock, and it's a big shift into motherhood. And you mentioned there, like, basic things like nutrition, like, when am I getting to eat? And like you said, if you are breastfeeding, like, you need to get that nutrition back in, like, as soon as you've fed the baby, or you're going to be lightheaded,
super depleted.
So putting all those things in place beforehand, it is usually a second thought. How did that compare then when you had your second flow? Did you make sure the next time round you were super prepared to look after yourself?
Yeah, that was a big lesson, I think, from the first, was knowing when I needed help and also accepting help. So it took a big shift. We moved countries from Los Angeles to London to be next to family. I think just accepting that I couldn't do it all. I come from the generation where that was very much promoted, right? Like, you should be able to work, you should be able to manage everything, because we are superhuman, right? We are women. We can do it all. We can do it all. We can have it all. And so when you have it all, you're like, what am I supposed to do now? Why does it feel too much? Is there something wrong with me? Like, am I supposed to be able to outsource this, or how are you doing it? Like, what's going on? So that was a big lesson for me, was just being able to admit that I needed help in some way, shape, or form, and to be able to outsource some of my stress. And in outsourcing my stress, I was able to receive what I needed and to find care for myself and to be able to find time for myself too. I didn't realize that in order for me to take care of others, I needed to be well taken care of. So that was a big kind of shift going into number two, and definitely something I would recommend for any first-time moms out there.
Trying to carve that time out for yourself. My experience is we've got 3 sets of grandparents, so we've got we've got our village, we've got hands-on help, and so I was able to have a hot shower when I wanted to. For parents, Monique, that maybe don't have that support system, what do you see mums struggling with in those first few weeks, and what are some takeaways if we are, you don't have that support? How can you find time in the day to just kind of take a break from it if it's getting a bit overwhelming?
So I think some of the main challenges is, Liv, you sort of mentioned it, sort of just adapting to the physical changes after having a baby, and you had an infection, so that's a whole different ball game on top of that. But some of those first physical changes after you give birth, I feel like women expect to look in the mirror and their previous body is there, and it's not. You've still got a bump, and you're like, hey, why the baby is out? Why am I still looking pregnant?
I actually feel so stupid that I thought that as soon as that baby went out that my belly would go back to normal and I'd be like super skinny. And I was like, why have I still got a bump literally 4 weeks later? Like, is there another one in there? What's going on? It's not.
Because your uterus is still, it's not back to its normal size. So I think those physical changes, coming to terms with how your body looks now and not losing sight of you grew a baby from a molecular level, birthed it like a badass, I'm sure. And you've got to give yourself time to heal. So the first things that we see is obviously bleeding postpartum. I think women get a bit of a shock. They think, yeah, I'll bleed. Or if they end up with a Caesar, they think, oh, I won't bleed that much. But regardless of what type of birth you have, vaginal birth, vacuum, forceps, and also cesarean, you're still going to bleed. That's your uterus healing and recovering. Then we've got swelling. And I think this is something that really catches women off guard. And what I'm talking about here is not the peripheral swelling that you will get to like your legs and your hands because your body's trying to shift that fluid. But if you've had a natural tear to the perineum, so that area of skin between your vaginal opening and your anus, if you've had an episiotomy, so that surgical cut into the perineum to help your baby being born, it literally feels like you've grown a ball sack down there. Sorry. This is, I said, you brought an Aussie.
So puffy.
You've brought an Aussie onto the podcast. There's got to be some bogan slang in here. But truthfully, that's what I see. Like, I try to make it lighthearted and say this to give it almost a laugh so that when the time comes, they're going to be like, oh, that midwife did say I'm literally going to grow a ball sack. Yeah. And you're not. You're not actually,
but
right?
It's puffy down there.
It's puffy, but let's talk about why. It's healing. So imagine the easiest way to explain it is imagine I walk into a corner of a wall and bang my head. What happens to the head? I get an egg. Yeah, because that's the start of the healing process, the swelling to the area to promote the blood flow, all of those things. That's what's happening to your perineum. But if you are not expecting that, you touch down below and you be like, oh my God, is that ever going to go back to what it was? It's really intimidating. And I think also we have to take into consideration women's birth experiences with this because, I can speak from my sister's experience. She will not mind me saying this, but I looked at her perineum after she gave birth and I said, Emma, that is the worst thing that I've ever seen in my career.
God. Horrific.
But
really super bad.
It was really super bad, but that's come with trauma for her, having to reconnect with that area of her body. Like, we have to acknowledge that you can't just dismiss it, that it's normal, it will heal. Every other woman goes through it, but those things take time to heal. Yeah. And, then we've got the breast changes. My God, like your boobs are going on a roller coaster. Yes. Every single day there is something different happening to them. And we can expect that to happen, but once it's actually happening, you're like, how do I manage these changes? So like that engorgement that you spoke about, Liv, like these rock hard Pamela Anderson boobs that you're like, for me, getting that, but yes, this is the first time I'm going to have boobs in my life, but it is hard to manage. Yeah. Like,
and they're sore.
They're sore. And how do you manage them? So the engorgement is the inflammation to the breast tissue. It looks like your milk's in, but it's not. It's a transition. And it's all about healing that area. And I think taking it day by day is so important. But I love that you spoke about asking for help. And I'm a type A person. I have to know exactly what's going on and I have to be in control of every single little thing. And I struggle to accept help. And one thing that I've learned, and this is something that I tell women to do, is start practicing asking for help in your pregnancy. Yeah. Because it sounds so simple, but if you start to practice it now and learn that it's okay to ask help when you need it, you're going to feel so much more comfortable asking for help. And it is not a failure. Like it takes a village to raise a baby, but in today's society, we think that we should do it by ourselves.
I feel like the village is never too late too. When I was pregnant, I had a WhatsApp group where I would just dump everything that I would like. She's teething, she's getting her first. What are you using? Getting the download of all the things that you need. Or even with breastfeeding, from that, I realized I knew nothing. And so I went and educated myself. I got a lactation counseling certificate, not just for myself, but for my friends. So we don't have to have these meaningless conversations that don't go anywhere. But also I realized not just how difficult it is, but also how much trauma comes from it too. It was more of an experience to kind of educate myself, but I found a lot of healing in that process, because the more you know, the more you can help others. And I really felt that helping others helped me with my own healing and my own process too.
Yeah. And you definitely have to take into consideration your personality, right? And I think this is important to talk about, because let's look at our high achieving business women. For them, having a baby sitting in a chair feeding all day long, they're achieving nothing with their life. And that is really hard, and that doesn't get spoken about. Then they obviously are doing such an incredible job, but for them to be sitting still in their life and not progressing through like they normally, that is such a big shift.
It messes with your mind.
It messes with your mind because you look at this baby and you go, this baby is taking everything from me. I love you, but you just want me all day long and only me, and I'm done.
And it is such a shift, isn't it? If you've put so much focus on your career, and that's where so much of your identity was in your career, and then all of a sudden you've got a baby and now you're just mum. You're like flip-flopping between, who am I now, like what's my purpose here? I feel like I'm still kind of in the early stages, so I'm kind of doing that flip-flopping. I do feel as if I put a lot of my identity to my career, and so I think I'm now kind of getting to a nice point where I'm like, okay, I'm not Jilly before. She's dead. She can't come to the film. She's dead. So I can't be her.
She still is there.
Still there.
She is there.
She's just a new layer. There's just a new layer of me.
You're an onion.
I'm an onion. Layers. Yeah, I've got layers. I'm an onion now, and it's actually quite nice that I can I've blended my identities from the Jilly that I was before to now I'm a mum, and I think it'll make me a better, nicer person.
But God forbid you mention that you miss your career.
Yeah.
Women don't say it.
So much societal pressures that come with it.
So I think it's just really important to acknowledge those personality types that you have in yourself, because the type A person is probably going to find that transition to postpartum of surrendering quite hard, and the go with the flow. So just be kind to yourself, and like I said, setting up your village, knowing all your supports now, not in the time that you actually need them.
It's actually quite nice as well, taking your foot off the pedal for a wee bit and enjoying that slow living. I think babies really force you to slow down, and I think there's something so nice in that. The career progression, that'll all come back again. Just try and lean in and enjoy it as much as possible. That's kind of where I feel like I'm at just now anyway. Liv, you touched lightly on breastfeeding, and we will get more into that, but we give our listeners the opportunity to ask an expert something. So we have Maya Tam from Australia, your end, and she's got a question on breastfeeding and alcohol.
I'm so keen to hear what you think. I have a 5-month-old, and I'm starting to feel myself again finally, and I am going out with a few friends now, but on another note, I am still breastfeeding. Am I allowed to have a drink? I feel like people judge me for it when I'm out.
Such a minefield. My first night out, and I was trying to find information about breastfeeding and alcohol, there's so many conflicting things. So this is a great question.
Yeah, and I mean, it sort of reflects the self-care, right? Not saying that obviously go and have your whole bottle of wine as your self-care. That's not what I'm saying. But going out with friends and having that little bit of normality and having a drink of wine, that's fine, as long as you know how to do it safely. So I think people think that if you're drinking alcohol, the baby's just getting that alcohol straight away. So we know that breast milk, so the concentration in breast milk of alcohol is the same as like our blood levels. So just as we were driving a car, think of it almost like that. It takes about 30 minutes for the alcohol to actually hit our breast milk. So in terms of when should you feed your baby, this is why you might see women drinking alcohol with the baby on the breast. Because if they're going to feed within that half an hour, that actual alcohol concentration, it's not in the breast milk yet. The thing that I want you to know is you obviously, just as we would if we were drinking alcohol, we've got to think about the strength and concentration. So how many standard drinks is in that one? You got to think about, have you eaten, what's your size, what we normally would assess. But usually one standard drink, it takes about 2 hours to be processed from your breast milk. So 2 standard drinks, 4 hours. So Just depends if you're bringing the baby or if you're not, because my recommendation would be, if you're not bringing the baby, then pump just before you're going to have your first drink or just when you're having your first drink. And same thing with the baby. Offer the breast before you drink or when you're about to have that drink, because 30 minutes until that alcohol hits the breast milk. Obviously, though, if you're having multiple drinks, then we're not going to always be able to give that baby the breast milk.
I've not had a drink since that first time that I did, which was a few months ago, because
You're
like
worried.
you said, I'm too worried about it. I can't do the maths.
Yeah,
and
it's too
also
hard.
I got drunk so quick and felt hungover genuinely for a week. So I was like, it's just not worth
not-
it in the early stages just now. So Liv, your breastfeeding journey was quite tough. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
With both, actually, I had way too much milk. It was crazy because I had no idea how much milk was too much milk, but I was not prepared. I didn't have a pump. I didn't have, any kind of breast care items. The nurse just walked in on me. She's like, "Do you have anything for that?" And I was like, "No," with my Pamela Anderson boobs. and she's like, "Yeah, those are really hard. You're gonna need," and it was in the middle of the night. She's like, "You're gonna need a breast pump in the morning." And I'm like, "What is that?" She's like, "Yeah, get this and this size nipple flange, and blah 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 blah." She just kind of prescribed something for me. And in the morning, my husband was running off to get the nearest pump. But my God, in the first, I think for the first month, I don't know the units here, but I was pumping 1 liter of breast milk overnight.
Wow.
I was full on cow.
Yeah.
That's this much milk. And I didn't think that was even humanly possible.
Yeah.
I had 2 jugs. I actually had a 5-liter jug of water to refill my other jugs so that I could have enough water overnight. It was absolute madness. We had 2 floors. And so, yeah, that even just carrying up the water was a lot. My poor husband was just snacks. My Henry took a snap because one day he came up and, bless, I was really had gone through it that night. I didn't realize that it was the night I had gotten mastitis, but I hadn't been able to sleep for 2 nights prior. So I was basically up for 48 hours because every time I tried to fall asleep, it was time to breastfeed. And so after 48 hours of this, I called the doctor and they said, "Okay, so take some melatonins, take something to help you sleep." I did. I had my first 8 hours of sleep and I was like, wow, this is golden. The morning I woke up, I had given myself a breast infection. So it was a real learning process of just getting to know my body and getting to know what breast care is and getting to know what a breast routine is. When I called the lactation counselor, because again, it was COVID times, we couldn't see anyone in person. She just said, "Okay, so pump a little bit less every time." I'm like, but how? I'm just I don't even know how much I'm making. This is insane. How can I pump just a little bit less when you're making this amount? I had, the crazy thing is someone will listen to this and they'll be a little bit jealous that I had a whole full freezer of milk, but it was really painful and it was definitely something I would not wish on anyone. So it was a learning process, but something that brought me to, again, education and learning about my body and learning how amazing our bodies are and what we can do. As soon as we have babies, all of a sudden this magical power is switched on and we're able to give our babies a first food. And that's really amazing in of itself. But if it doesn't come with education, you really don't know what to do with this superpower. You're kind of left with this ability and not know how to use it. And so I think that the breastfeeding kind of lactation consultant certificate, it helped me learn about that, but also how different every woman is and all the struggles that we go through, and knowing that I'm not alone in this, but also there are so many different kinds of ways to feed your baby. And I think it's also important to be accepting of that and to know that every woman and baby is different. I think that, again, so much judgment comes from it, from Henry taking that picture and me sharing it on social media of me kind of that first morning suffering with all my water and my snacks and everything. And it was really bad. But sharing that picture, a lot of women came to my aid, but also I got a lot of hate too, which was really crazy for me to think about. Women have trauma in every stage of their life. And if it's unprocessed, if they're not able to talk about it, if they don't feel seen and heard, it's something that you kind of internalize and you feel weird and strange about. You're just carrying this with you that I had this experience and I am shamed. I cannot talk to anyone about it. I think that's really difficult. And so I studied in order to be able to talk to other women and to be progressive about it and to be able to help and to be able to at least give them some kind of comfort in knowing that, you know, you're not strange, you're not alone. And we all go through these universal experiences. Yeah, there's been a lot of healing in that. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. I think that's incredible that you turned that negative experience to a positive and then went and got your lactation consultant certificate, and we'll come back to that. But I just want to touch on mastitis.
Yeah.
And I got mastitis as well because, God forbid, I wanted a full night's sleep. And so my husband Andy started doing some of the night feeds, and then my mum would do some of them. So all of a sudden I was going from 7 days a week doing all the feeds to then I was down to 4 nights. And there was one night I woke up and I was like, oh my God, COVID is back. I have the worst flu ever. What's going on? And then of course it was mastitis. Monique, for our listeners, can you tell us what mastitis actually is? What are the signs to look for, and when should we contact a doctor?
So mastitis, basically it's inflammation of the breast tissue, but it goes beyond that localized area. So how does it present? Basically, as you guys have already described, but the most thing that women pick up on is that they start to feel a little bit off, a little bit unwell. So that might be a fever. They might feel that their heart is racing a little bit more. But then when we look at the actual breasts, they look different. They can look inflamed because it's inflammation. And what happens when things are inflamed? They get red, they get hot. Did you find that your breast just looked like so full and tight?
Mine's looked like blocks. I could actually see where the solid milk was, and like when I would stretch a certain way, I would feel like different blocks in my boobs, and they were red hot. I was roasting. And
very hot to touch. So I mean, mastitis can occur for a couple of different reasons. It could just be potentially we're not draining the breast, okay, which sounds like potentially for you guys that was the situation that you were in. But also it could just be with that, if baby's not attaching well to the breast, if you're getting that nipple damage, if they're not able to drain that breast once again, it can be caused. But the way that we manage it is, yes, you may need to go to the GP, but you can do other things first. I think back in the day we used to just always be like, mastitis is an infection, you need antibiotics. But we know now it's moved more to the inflammation, and sometimes it can include bacteria where you might need antibiotics, so it's that infective mastitis. But let's think of the easiest way I explain it is, let's think of your breast like a sprained ankle. Now I don't know, once again, if you do it like this over here, but with the sprained ankle, it's like that rest, that ice, compression, elevation, you know, that RICE acronym. So the way that we can help improve mastitis by ourselves is reducing that inflammation. So the first thing I would say is taking an anti-inflammatory. Okay, so an over-the-counter medication. Once again, this is not individualized advice though. You need to seek your own help for that. But the next thing is you can put ice to the breast.
That really helped me. That and just also like massaging them, and like it was sore and I was like, ouch, but it was through the night that I felt really unwell. And in my head I knew immediately I was going to the doctors and I was getting the antibiotics. I was like, I'm not doing any of these natural remedies, I need this gone. But
this is something that's changed over the years though, because with my first and my second, the advice has changed. It used to be heat packs. Now it's absolutely ice. Take away the inflammation.
So basically heat you could be putting on the breast before the feed. So to help them for the breastfeed, or just if you're exclusively pumping, the more we can drain the breast is going to reduce your chance of the mastitis staying. So with that heat, obviously heat to a tissue is going to promote the blood flow, which helps the milk flow.
Good tip.
Jilly, you spoke about massaging the breast. How were you doing that? Were you really in there? Giving it a good...
No, this, again, I was on TikTok. TikTok's raised my whole
Don't
baby.
Don't get your advice from... Okay, that's fine. We won't go
this
there.
is just my experience, guys. Please don't go to TikTok to raise your baby. But it was the cold ice packs and like a gentle lymphatic drainage and like a certain way.
But that's what I was going to say. So obviously a lot of women feel lumpy and bumpy. So we think of a sore neck or a sore muscle, you get in there and you rub, and if you do that, you will inflame the tissue even more. So you're going to worsen your mastitis. So it's literally that light touch towards your breast, towards your nipple, to try and help promote that milk to flow. And then we have to look at, if your baby's on the breast, if they're fed, if your breasts still feel like firm and uncomfortable, then you may have to express after. But being careful and mindful of that, because if we then put a breast pump on and express for another 20 minutes, your brain's going to go, oh, we need an extra 20 minutes of milk. Exactly. And that's when you have fall a liter into of milk.
Again, do not take my advice to make your to increase your milk flow.
So like, they're simple things. And if you notice this though, seek help early. So seeking help from a lactation consultant is really beneficial, because it might just be a latch issue that the baby's not getting on the breast adequately, that we need to adjust that. But also you can go to your GP. So we do know that some women require those antibiotics, but I just want to explain once again that not all mastitis requires antibiotics, because there might not be an infection. So you can start the process earlier and just pay attention to your breasts. A lot of women only pick up on the mastitis signs from feeling unwell, but often there's those earlier signs. So if we can get on top of it sooner rather than later, it's going to make it more beneficial for you. But it's so hard to know what to do.
It's so hard to strike that balance. And now any of the nights that I do have off, and my husband, or say my mum, takes Winnie through the night, I set an alarm and I make sure that I pump through the night, because I can never get mastitis again. It was hellish 24 hours.
But you know, the first question that I feel like a lot of women ask me as a midwife is, obviously, if they've got good support, they want the support person to help. The first thing they'll say is, can my support person give a bottle overnight? And that's a challenging one, because I get it that you want the support so you can have the rest, but same thing, whatever you're like not giving your baby from the breast, if you're not stimulating, your brain's going, I don't need that milk. So you might reduce your milk supply, but also if we're not draining, then we put ourselves at higher risk of mastitis. So before you do that, once again, make a plan.
Manage your expectations. I definitely never realised, and that's obviously how I did get mastitis, that I actually can't have a full night off. Like, if I choose to breastfeed, then I am going to need to set an alarm. However, Liv, you did combination feeding with your second, and I've just recently started doing that, and it was mainly so I could get back to work. I did build up quite a good freezer stash, but when I was going away for work, I was being irrational, and I thought, imagine my fridge breaks in my freezer, and then the milk in the freezer goes off, and then what do I do? So almost kind of felt like a lifeline for me. And so like I felt that weight off my shoulders. Did you find with combination feeding that sense of relief?
It was difficult to come to, because I had to introduce formula when she was in the NICU, right? I had to also pump and dump. You know, when you have enough and you just can't give it to them, and then you find that your supply is reduced as a result. That's really tough. You know, that's what it's there for. Right? It's there to help you through the hard times. And so I always have something just as an emergency stash, right? Like, you just have something just in case. And it's helped me through, you know, you have to know that you're always doing your best no matter what. And that doesn't just go to breastfeeding, that goes through everything in motherhood, right? Like, you're always, I think with women, we're always trying to just make everything perfect. And what happens is that we end up forgetting about ourselves, and we end up trying to do everything for everyone else, and then no one takes care of us. So yes, all these things are there for everyone, and it's actually there to make your job easier, right? It's actually there so that you have time to be like, oh, I didn't eat yet. Oh my gosh, I think I should go cook something for myself. Right? So there's that balance. But again, like, health is so multifaceted. You know, it's not just as simple as being able to prescribe, okay, here you go, here's some formula, your life is sorted. So it's always that check-in with yourself and self-awareness, and going along on that journey, I feel, has been able to also make me a little bit more empathetic for other moms who are also having trouble, or even just being able to connect with my friends on that. You know, it's given us a different journey, in the sense that also Dad has been able to come in and help with the feeding. My first was actually exclusively breastfed, and oh my God, that was just, you know, me and the baby all the time. Like, they would be here on sitting in this podcast if
Yeah.
I was exclusively breastfeeding, you know? So it gives you that space. And so there's a lot of blessings that come with it too.
Yeah, there is such an emotional side with breastfeeding and just feeding in general, but like you said, that's why formula is there. I think there is a societal pressure on women as well to do quote unquote natural. Monique, what are some tips and advice on how to navigate that as a woman, you know, those pressures around feeding?
I think at the end of the day, like, you've got to do what's best for you and your family. Like, that is the most simple way to answer that question. Like, as a mum, your mental health comes first and your family comes first. Obviously, we know the benefits of breastfeeding, right? I can talk about that all day long, but I'm not going to, because at the end of the day, it's your decision.
It's so interesting how we're talking about identity and like, who am I now after becoming a mum? But you becoming a lactation consultant, that really has like aligned to, that's a part of your identity now. You are a mum.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gone on to create a women's community, and so the WOMOM community that I created, it's WOMOM, so play off the word women. We very much just give women resources. So for me, coming from a wellness entrepreneur background, I teach yoga, breath work, a lot of holistic practices, and I felt like in my motherhood journey, this was something that I needed to lean into more. Like, I'm so grateful that I knew how to breathe, and I knew how to move my body and to support my body through the changes, to get back into exercise, to stick with movement, to keep myself healthy. But I see a lot of women suffer. And so it was really a free platform. But, you know, we had wonderful events like retreats and online breathwork events. And we were able to do incredible things and give moms resources on how to take care of themselves.
So Liv, how important has movement and exercise been to help feel like yourself again?
Oh, it's helped me bounce back in the sense being able to be in my body and be comfortable in my body no matter what I look like. I think that has been a gift, to be able to just, no matter what size I am, to feel comfortable in moving about. It's so crazy how the body expands and shrinks and, you know, moves, and being able to accept myself at every stage, you know, look at myself in the mirror and to accept who I am today versus trying to fit into something or be in a different mold. I feel like motherhood is such a box, right? Like, we are told that this is the way it's going to be. And if we don't fit in that box, it's somehow we're wrong or something's not going right. And this goes with any part of the conversation, right? Physically, it's very much what people are looking at. And when women have to go through these changes, we get weight gains, we get all kinds of, not even disfiguration, but you were calling these things that happen to our body that are unerasable. We have to come to grips with that. And exercise very much has helped me with my mental health as well.
Yeah.
And I very much promote yoga because it's something that you can do throughout pregnancy. And it also really helps with the pelvic floor, and it helps with breathing. And it's very much also getting to know yourself. It really touches on emotional well-being.
Monique, do you have any advice for how to approach pregnancy and postpartum in regards to exercise?
My tips is, in pregnancy, obviously different trimesters come with different things. Trimester 1, you're feeling gross. Cocktail of hormones. Once again, if you're in Australia, you're probably just eating Vegemite on toast. You guys, you're like, no way. But you're just getting through the days.
Yeah.
You got the morning sickness, it's all day sickness. You're not going to be moving your body the same way that you were.
It's the last thing you want to do when you're being sick is then go exercise.
Yeah,
No, I
and
want to
like,
rot on the couch.
In your head, you're probably like, oh, this sucks. Like, I get that, but you've got to do what your body's telling you in that trimester.
Yep,
Then
rest.
trimester 2, you start to feel a little bit better, so you might get back to what you're doing, right? And then trimester 3, this is when we'd usually recommend that you got to think your center of mass is increasing. You've got a decent sized bump, so your posture's going to be changing. But this is when you should change to more birth preparation. And exercise to every person is different. You know, I'm someone that likes Pilates, but I also like running, but I also like strength-based exercise. Whereas Liv, if you prefer yoga, that's your exercise. So don't, for pregnancy especially, don't just do something random that you've never done. Like stick
Oh,
to...
I did that. And I tore my abs. Is that what you call it?
Okay,
Yes,
see?
DR.
This is why I say don't just
Yeah.
do something random. Like
Yeah.
it's important to be guided, right, throughout your pregnancy with what exercises you should be doing. And then for postpartum, I mean, this 6-week checkup and the bounce back culture that we do have is postpartum's not 6 weeks. Postpartum is the rest of your life, ultimately.
Okay.
And you've got to think about what type of birth did you have, vaginal or cesarean? How are you managing that right now? Have you had any infected episiotomy sites? You know, what about your cesarean wound? Like, how has that been healing? It's not so much go to the GP and get that tick. They probably go, yep, how you going? Cool, happy days, see you later. Probably haven't even like actually checked the area, which if you have a GP like that, red flag, okay? Just saying. But seeking help in this space postnatally is really important too, so that you have more of a tailored exercise program. And once again, just know what works for you might not work for someone else. Be kind to yourself. You're not going to be able to get back into the boxing ring like you, Jilly, straight away, which you realized. But just gradually easing your way back into it.
Enjoy that time off. Like, see, right now, this is the least guilty I've ever felt about eating whatever I want and the least amount of movement. So yeah, lean into that. So we chatted a little bit about, you know, mums are being put in the back burner. We have to prioritise the baby. Liv, what would your advice be for new mums, something to do for themselves?
I would say that, you know, it's first about self-awareness. Like, what do you need? That question has to be answered, and it could be very different at every moment. And that leads straight into self-love, self-care. And self-care cannot come without self-love, right? It's very difficult to know what you need and give it to yourself unless, you know, it comes from a place of love, right? It could be just a run-of-the-mill getting yourself a coffee, but that can turn into self-care, right? There's a lot of places and areas in our life that we often neglect if we don't have that self-awareness. So it all kind of ties in to each other. So you could turn everything really into a moment for yourself if you need it and if you know that you need it. So for example, the other day, I'm learning very much right now, I'm learning about the nervous system and how my emotions are kind of like the undertone of everything. So when my kid is, you know, going off, which they often do, and it could be something so simple, but just don't want to eat breakfast. And, you know, you're so short on time. They have to get out the door. They have to get to school. You have to just take it back to yourself. And like, how can I self-regulate first and foremost? You know, I have no idea what they're going through at this moment, and they're probably not going to be able to tell me. So I have to first check myself and just be the baseline for them. It's crazy because, you know, we have all these tools now, social media telling us, you know, in this moment, ask this question, do this. But in that very real moment, you don't remember all those things. You have to come first and foremost back to yourself. And so I'm learning about my own emotions, how not to override them, and how to come from a place of love towards them and to be able to help them in that their time of need. That's something that comes back to putting yourself first, right? So what's going on with me? What is my emotion? She's triggering me right now. She's going off and I really need a moment. It could be go to the bathroom, take a breath, or it could just be take a breath where I am right now. Or it could be I need a full-on yoga class after this, or I need to hug a tree. Because this was, oh my gosh, if you don't know what a breakfast routine before having kids is like, it's relentless. Military operation. Precisely. So it could be that kind of morning, and you could really need some self-care after that. I can't believe the amount of things that I've needed to look out for myself afterwards, after a simple breakfast routine. But it's there, and knowing what you need is great. And being able to give yourself that is the next step, and being able to accept that. I've also started to lift weights. You know, turning 40, I've put myself as a priority more, booked a trip for myself. The first thing that I did was watch a movie by myself, and then it's taken little steps from there. I was in a shock being in the theater on my own. But after that shock worn off and I was like, this is really nice. I was like, what else can I do for myself? I'm really curious. And it's exploring that and being comfortable with being by yourself again. I think you're so busy, and it's so great to have these little distractions that are running around all over the place, and you get so caught up in that. But also there's a time when you're going to have to move on from that, and where you're going to have to just be comfortable with being by yourself again. So putting yourself first is something that's very much going to be part of my book. And through every stage of motherhood, learning how to thrive in that moment is something that I think is really key.
Just to finish our conversation on identity, quite a heavy question, Liv, but who are you now?
Wow. I am a mother. I am a wife. I am learning. I am having some reconciliation with who I was before. So I'm very much as a whole. But then, next day I could be in pieces again and needing to reclaim, bits and parts of myself. But right now, that's who I am.
Love that. Well, thank you so much. That chat was so insightful, so great. I feel like I could use some self-care now, definitely. Liv, where can we find more of you? You have your book coming out soon as well?
Yeah, it's in the works right now. So, working on Thrive Mama. It's the working title.
Super cute.
Thank you. And I'm just on Instagram when I can. My @ is Live Low Golding. And other than that, I'm trying to work on more things, but we'll see. Trying to start a Substack, but things are busy. So yeah.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
And Monique, thank you so much for coming all the way from Australia to share your knowledge and reassurance. Where can our listeners and viewers find you?
Well, I came over on a plane. I didn't actually come over on a kangaroo. I think people think that that's what we do. But they can find me at the Middy Society, which is MIDDEE. But also, we're a childbirth education platform. We run first aid as well, and we run birthing classes across Australia. Who knows? Maybe after this, we'll come over to the UK. But we do have a full-blown birth masterclass online, so it is accessible anywhere in the world. And I'm just so grateful to be here and share my knowledge. And I don't know, I was feeling so emotional in the end just listening to you, Liv. And I don't have kids myself, but getting to have these conversations, it makes me proud of you guys, and opens my eyes how amazing mums truly are, and what a pleasure it is as a midwife to be able to support you guys.
Thank you so much for that, guys. It was great. It was great. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Parents You've Got This, We've Got You. You can find Tommee Tippee on socials, just click the links in the description below, and check out Tommee Tippee's website, where there's loads of advice for new parents and amazing products to help you get through your parenting journey. And just for our podcast listeners, get 15% off at TommeeTippee.com using code You've Got This 15. You've got this and we've got you. Come back next week when I'll be talking to influencer Danielle Peaser all about finding your people to join you through the highs and the lows of parenthood. See you there.